She said she never cheated. Then her ex sent me a video. She didn't know he saved. When I first met Lena, it felt like the universe had finally decided to throw me a bone. I'd just gotten out of a messy breakup. My work life was exhausting, and I was starting to believe that maybe real, healthy relationships weren't. Then she appeared at a friend's birthday party of all places. She was standing by the bar, laughing at something someone said, her eyes bright and warm in a way that made you feel like you were the only person in the room when she looked at you. We talked for hours that night. It was effortless, like we'd known each other in another life. She told me she was a graphic designer, loved traveling, hated dishonesty, and had zero tolerance for cheaters. She said it with a kind of conviction that made me respect her instantly. I remember thinking, finally, someone who gets it. Over the next few weeks, things escalated quickly. We went from texting every day to seeing each other almost every night. She'd surprise me at work with coffee, leave little notes in my car, send me songs she said reminded her of me. There was an intensity to her affection that was intoxicating. Early on, she told me about her ex, Mark. According to her, he was a controlling, manipulative nightmare who couldn't accept that their relationship was over. She said he lied constantly, twisted her words, and tried to make her feel guilty whenever she set boundaries. I remember sitting there, listening, feeling protective of her, thinking, who could treat someone like this? She told me she had blocked him on everything and hadn't spoken to him in months. I didn't realize it then, but she was planting a seed. By the time she was done painting that picture of him, I couldn't imagine any scenario where she would go back to him or even talk to him, and she knew that. The first year was everything I thought a relationship should be. We traveled together, New Orleans in the spring, a weekend in the mountains in the fall. We had inside jokes, shared playlists, and those quiet mornings where you just lie in bed with someone and feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I thought I'd found my person, but slowly, little things started to shift. She became more protective of her phone. She used to leave it on the counter when she went to shower. Now it was glued to her hand. If a notification came in, she'd flip it over before I could even glance at the screen. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was just more private than I realized. One night, around 11, I was getting ready for bed when I noticed the faint glow of her phone under the blanket. She was lying next to me, typing quick. I asked who she was talking to so late. She hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it. Then she smiled and said it was a friend from work who was going through a breakup. That hesitation stuck in my head. A few weeks later, we were watching a movie when she got up to grab snacks. Her phone buzzed on the couch, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a name, Mark. My stomach dropped. I didn't even have time to process before she came back, scooped up the phone and locked it. I tried to keep my voice steady when I asked, I thought you blocked him. She rolled her eyes and said, I did. He made a new account. I'm ignoring him. Then she laughed it off and kissed me like it was nothing. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. At least, that's what I told myself. Months went by, and the weirdness became easier to ignore because everything else between us was so good, at least on the surface. But then something happened that made ignoring it impossible. It was a random Tuesday when I ran into Mark at the gym. I'd seen pictures of him before, ones Lena had shown me while telling some story about how pathetic he is, so I recognized him instantly. He noticed me too and gave me this knowing look, like we were in on some secret together. I wasn't going to say anything, but he walked over. So, you're the new guy, he said, smirking. I kept my tone neutral and said, yeah, and you're the old one. He laughed. Not the kind of laugh you give when you're actually amused, but the kind that says, oh, you have no idea. Funny, he said. She still hasn't told you everything, huh? I felt my chest tighten. About what? He just smiled, shook his head and said, you'll find out. Before walking away, I went home that night with his words rattling in my brain. I told Lena about the encounter, expecting her to be annoyed or maybe even upset that I'd seen him. Instead, she scoffed. Of course he'd say something like that. He's obsessed with me. Can't stand that I moved on. She kissed me and told me to forget it. And for a while I did. Until the day I got the message. It was 2 months later when my phone lit up with a friend request on Instagram. From Mark. Against my better judgment, I accepted it. Almost immediately, he sent me a DM. Do you want to know who you're actually dating? I stared at it for a long time. I typed no and deleted it. I started to write go to hell but stopped. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I finally closed the app. I didn't respond. I told myself I wouldn't get dragged into whatever drama he was trying to start. But something deep in my gut told me this wasn't over. I managed to push that Instagram message out of my head for a couple of weeks. Work got busier. Lena and I had a trip planned to visit her family, and I didn't want to poison the mood with paranoia. But looking back, I think she sensed my hesitation because she got sweeter than usual, almost overly affectionate. Every morning, coffee waiting for me. Random texts in the middle of the day saying she missed me. She'd curl up next to me at night and trace circles on my chest until I fell asleep. It should have reassured me. Instead, it made me feel like she was covering something. Then came the argument. It wasn't even about anything serious. Just me asking why she was going out late on a Thursday to catch up with a friend I'd never heard of. She got defensive instantly. You don't trust me? Seriously? I've given you no reason to think I'd ever cheat. You're acting just like Mark used to. I hated being compared to him. That was her trump card every time. Make me feel like I was slipping into controlling boyfriend territory. So I backed off, let her leave, and tried to convince myself I was imagining things. The next morning, she was cold, barely said a word before leaving for work. I figured she was still annoyed, so I didn't push it. But that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message request on Facebook from Mark. I almost deleted it on sight, but then I noticed there was a video attached. The preview was just a blurry frame, but I could see Lena's hair, her laugh frozen mid-frame. My heart started pounding. Against every shred of self-preservation, I tapped it. The clip was short, maybe 15 seconds. But it was enough. Lena was lying in bed, laughing at something off-screen. The camera panned slightly, and there he was, Mark, pulling her closer, kissing her like it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest went tight. Then I noticed the background. A TV on the wall playing some late-night talk show. On the screen, in the corner, the date, exactly 7 months ago. 7 months ago, Lena told me she was on a 3-day business trip in Chicago. I remember because she FaceTimed me from what I now realized must have been a hotel bathroom, saying she was about to head to bed early. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I replayed the clip 3 times, hoping for some detail, anything that would prove it was old footage, but the date was right there, mocking me. I didn't reply to Mark. I didn't even know what to say. Instead, I sat on the couch for what felt like hours, the video looping in my mind until my stomach churned. When Lena got home that night, I tried to act normal. I needed to hear what she'd say without giving her time to prepare. We ate dinner, made small talk, watched a bit of TV. My pulse was hammering in my ears the whole time. Finally, I said, "Can I ask you something?" She looked over, half smiling, like she could tell I was about to get serious. "If you ever cheated on me, you'd tell me, right?" I asked. Her face changed instantly. It wasn't guilt, not yet. It was offense. "Are you kidding me right now? Where is this coming from?" I stared at her for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and hit play. Her expression went blank. Not shocked, not horrified, just flat. She watched the 15 seconds, then looked at me and said, "That's old." "It's from 7 months ago," I said, my voice shaking. "That's not true. He probably edited the date in or something." "You really think I'd do that to you? You believe him over me?" The way she said it, with this mix of outrage and wounded innocence, made me question myself for a split second. But the image of her in his arms, that laugh I thought was just for me, it burned in my head. "You told me you were in Chicago," I said quietly. "I was? You're seriously going to let him screw with your head like this? This is exactly what he does. He's obsessed with ruining my relationships." Her voice was getting louder, her eyes glistening with what looked like tears, but I didn't know if they were real anymore. I told her I needed space and went to sleep in the guest room. She didn't come in. The next morning, I woke up to find her gone. No note, no text, but there was a DM from Mark waiting. That's just the beginning. I stared at Mark's message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to block him, delete everything, and try to salvage what I had with Lena. The other part, the part that wouldn't stop replaying that 15-second video, needed to know what he meant. I typed back, "What do you mean?" His reply was instant. "Check your email." I opened my inbox and there it was, an email from an address I didn't recognize, with the subject line, "For your own good." My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it. I clicked. Inside were 6 attachments. Screenshots of text conversations, photos, another short video. The screenshots were damning. Lena telling Mark she missed their nights together, asking if he still had the bottle of whiskey she liked, arranging to meet when he's out of town for work. One message, time-stamped 5 months ago, read, "I wish I could just spend the whole weekend here without him noticing." I wanted to throw up. The photos were worse. They weren't explicit, but they were intimate. Lena in a hoodie I'd never seen before, sitting on his couch with her feet tucked under her, hair wet like she'd just showered. Mark in the frame, his arm draped casually across her shoulders. They looked like a couple. The second video was longer, 30 seconds this time. Lena sitting at his kitchen table, eating takeout, laughing at something he said behind the camera. And then, halfway through, she looks straight into the lens and says, "He'd lose his mind if he knew I was here." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I didn't reply to Mark. I couldn't. I just sat there for what felt like hours, trying to make sense of the person I thought I knew. When Lena came home that night, she was different, softer. She kissed me like nothing was wrong, asked about my day, curled up next to me on the couch. It felt fake, like she was playing a role. I couldn't keep it in. "Why didn't you tell me you've been seeing him?" I asked. She froze for half a second, just enough to see the truth. But then she laughed. "Wow, he's really good at this. What did he send you now? More fake screenshots? Old photos?" "God, you're predictable. They're dated, Lena. They're from months ago, when you were with..." Her voice dropped. "Do you hear yourself? You sound insane. This is exactly what he wants, to make you paranoid and ruin us. You think I'd risk everything we have for him? He's nothing to me." I wanted to believe her so badly. I wanted to erase the images burned into my brain, but the evidence was too detailed, too real. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited until she was in the shower. Then I picked up her phone. She had a passcode I didn't know, but she'd been careless. Face ID was still enabled. I held it up, the screen unlocked, and my stomach dropped. Her messages with Mark weren't in her main inbox. They were in the hidden section of Messenger under a different name. And there it was. Weeks of flirty texts, secret meetups, jokes about me. One message from just 2 nights ago read, "He's starting to suspect. I need to be careful." I put the phone down like it was on fire. My hands were cold, my chest tight. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, smiling like nothing was wrong, and I realized I couldn't confront her yet. Not until I had everything. The next day, I messaged Mark. If you have more, send. Mark didn't hesitate. Within minutes of me sending that message, my phone buzzed with a series of notifications, photos, screenshots, and 2 full videos. The first photo hit me like a punch to the gut. It was Lena in my old college sweatshirt, the one I'd given her a few months into our relationship. She was lying on Mark's couch, bare legs tangled in a blanket, looking at him like he was the only person in the world. The timestamp was from 4 months ago. The screenshots filled in the rest. Conversations where she told him she couldn't stop thinking about the last time they were together. Discussions about how she had to manage me so I wouldn't suspect anything. Even complaints about the gifts I'd gotten her, how they were sweet but kind of useless, and how Mark actually knew her taste. One thread made my skin crawl. Mark asked, "When are you going to end it with him?" And she replied, "When I'm ready. For now, it's fun having both." By the time I opened the first video, I was already numb. In it, Lena was sitting cross-legged on Mark's bed, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up and said, "He thinks I'm at my sister's tonight. I told him she was going through a breakup and needed me." She laughed, an easy, casual laugh, and then said, "If he ever found out about this, it would kill him." I closed my eyes and tried to breathe, but the air felt heavy. I finally messaged Mark, "Why are you showing me all this?" His reply was short, "Because she did the same thing to me. I just want her to stop ruining people." There was a bitterness in his words that I understood now. He wasn't doing this for me. At least not entirely. This was revenge, plain and simple. But that didn't make the evidence any less real. For the next few days, I played along with Lena. I answered her texts, went to dinner with her, even kissed her goodnight. But inside, something cold and sharp was building. Every smile she gave me, every "I love you" she whispered, it all felt like poison. I started quietly putting the pieces together. I checked old receipts, my calendar, even the location data from my phone to match dates and times with the evidence Mark gave me. It lined up perfectly. Every girl's night, every late meeting, every last-minute trip she'd mentioned had a corresponding photo, message, or video from Mark. There were nights where I sat in my car for hours, scrolling through the proof, trying to figure out when exactly our relationship had become a lie. The truth was, it might have always been one. The more I thought about it, the less I wanted a quiet breakup. She'd lied to me, mocked me behind my back, and used my trust like it was some kind of joke. I wanted her to see it all crumble in her hands. So I made a plan. One of our mutual friends was throwing a big get-together the following weekend. Almost everyone we knew would be there. I decided that would be the moment. No yelling in private, no "he said, she said" that she could spin into a sob story. I'd let her own lies speak for themselves. I told Mark about my idea. He sent me a final batch of files, everything he had. I saved it all to a USB drive, along with a few extra copies on my phone, just in case. For the rest of the week, I acted normal. Lena seemed to buy it, even texting me the night before the party to say, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, handsome." I read that message twice, feeling nothing. Tomorrow, I thought, she wouldn't be able to say anything to me ever again. The night of the party, I felt a strange calm. It wasn't satisfaction, not yet. More like the steady focus before you finally pull a trigger you've been holding for too long. I got there early, helped our friends set up, made small talk with people drifting in. When Lena arrived, she walked in like she owned the place, hugging friends, laughing, looking every bit the perfect girlfriend. She came over to me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Missed you." I just smiled. The party was loud, music playing, people scattered between the kitchen and living room. After an hour or so, our friend decided to put on a slideshow of photos from past trips and events. It was playing on the big TV in the living room. That was my cue. I told him I had a little surprise for everyone, a funny video montage I'd put together from different hangouts. He grinned and handed me the remote. I plugged in my USB drive, queued up the file, and stepped back. The first few seconds were harmless. Inside jokes, silly photos, random clips of our friend group laughing. Lena was smiling, watching with everyone else. Then, without a cut or warning, the next clip rolled. The living room went quiet instantly. On the screen, Lena was lying in bed, laughing, Mark pulling her close. The date in the corner was clear as day. Someone in the back muttered, "Wait, what?" Before anyone could process, the second clip played. Lena at Mark's kitchen table, eating takeout, saying he'd lose his mind if he knew I was here. A ripple went through the crowd. Heads turned toward her. She stood frozen for a second, then snapped, "Turn it off." Her voice was sharp, almost panicked. I didn't. The third video played, her on his bed, saying she told me she was at her sister's, laughing about how I'd never find out. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ." I finally paused the video. "Lena," I said, my voice calm, "do you want to explain or should I keep going? Because there's more." Her face was pale, eyes darting from me to the crowd. "This is taken out of context," she stammered. "Mark he's obsessed. He's manipulating." I cut her off. "With timestamps? With messages from your own phone? Should I read them out loud?" She shook her head, tears welling up, but no words came. Mark, of course, wasn't there, but his absence almost made it worse for her. She couldn't point to him, couldn't shift the blame in real time. People were staring, waiting for anything that made sense. Instead, she grabbed her bag and stormed out, muttering something under her breath. The door slammed behind her, and the silence she left behind was deafening. I turned the TV off and handed the remote back. Nobody said much at first, but the looks on their faces told me everything. I didn't need to explain. Within hours, word had spread through our friend group, and by the next day, Lena's social media was deactivated. People messaged, some to check in, others to tell me they'd always suspected something, but I didn't feel vindicated. Not yet. I just felt empty. I thought that after the party, after watching her lies implode in front of everyone, I'd feel some kind of closure. But instead, I went home that night to a quiet apartment that felt foreign, like the air itself had been pulled out of it. Her things were still there, clothes in the closet, shampoo in the shower, the mug she always used sitting in the sink. Every object felt like a reminder that the last 2 years had been a performance. She didn't contact me the next day, or the day after, but on the third day, a message came through, an email. It was long, rambling, and full of contradictions. She wrote about how she never meant to hurt me, how Mark had tricked her, how the videos were moments of weakness that didn't define her. She claimed she loved me the whole time. Then, halfway through, the tone shifted. She accused me of humiliating her, of being cruel for making it public. She said I'd destroyed her reputation over something that wasn't black and white. I didn't reply. A few days later, Mark messaged me again. "She's been calling me non-stop," he wrote, blaming me for everything, saying you were the one and I ruined it. I asked him why he was even talking to her if he'd gone to such lengths to expose her. His answer was simple, because I want her to know what it feels like to lose control. It was messed up, but I understood. We were two very different people, but we'd been on the same ride, one she controlled for far too long. Over the next week, Lena tried reaching me through mutual friends. Some of them told me she was a wreck, and that maybe I should at least hear her out. Others admitted they'd seen red flags, but didn't want to get involved. I didn't meet her. I didn't call. I didn't text. The truth was, nothing she could say would erase the fact that she'd lied to my face while laughing about it behind my back. That's not something you fix with an apology. One night, I sat in the living room with all her things in a pile by the door. I sent her one final message. "Your stuff is here. Pick it up by Friday or I'll drop it at your sister's." She came by when I wasn't home. When I walked in later, the pile was gone. The apartment felt cleaner, lighter. I blocked her on everything that night. It's been months since then, and I'd love to say I'm over it completely, but the truth is, betrayal leaves a mark. I don't check people's phones, I don't snoop, but I notice things now. Pauses. Hesitations. The way someone guards their screen. Sometimes, late at night, I'll think about the first time I met her, how bright her smile was, how certain I felt that she was the one. And then I remember that certainty is dangerous when it's built on trust someone never deserved. Mark sent me one last message a few weeks ago. Just a short line. "She's with someone new. I give it 6 months." I didn't reply. I don't care who she's with now. I don't care if she's happy or miserable. Because finally, for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking over my shoulder, wondering what's real. I'm done with her lies. And that's enough.